So those of us who are unfamiliar with me, you will get familiar with me later on as we go on throughout the school year. Okay, so I'm Dr. Dwayne Dice. Now, a part of the Education Task Force is the Jaminars, and the Jaminars run throughout the entire year, usually 2 or 3 per month throughout the year, the school year. And then we have our summit at the end of the year, somewhere around June, as well as the conference, the Education Task Force or JDETF conference. Okay, this evening is our Jaminar from the subcommittee in the Education Task Force, and the subcommittee is School and Community Partnership Subcommittee. And that subcommittee is chaired by Mr. Shekhar Winter, who is based in New York. So this is her introduction, and she will go on with some more as it relates to explanation and description of the task force, as well as what she's here to present, okay? So welcome everyone, and we welcome also our chair for the School and Community Partnership embarking on this journey. Tasheka Winter is the Assistant Department Director for Early Childhood School Age Program and Community School Programs at Bronxworth. In this capacity, she's responsible for the overall design, implementation, and management of all the programs within these portfolios. Ms. Winter has worked with the low-income families and other marginalized population in the Bronx in a number of different capacities since 2007, when she started at the Bronx Works, performing extensive case management services for persons living with HIV/AIDS. And she later transitioned to preventative case management services, where she served as a supervisor, okay? Now in 2013, she shifted her focus and began providing educational, preventative, recreational, and supportive services for children and high-risk youth populations throughout the Bronx under the Children and Youth Program. She has a very strong commitment to strengthening communities throughout New York City. And she served on the New York Urban League Young Professionals Executive Leadership Team as the Vice President, where she supports the President and oversees the operations of 6 committees charged with organizing community, civil engagement, and professional development initiatives in the 5 boroughs in New York City. Ms. Winter also serves as the advisory board for the Bank Street College of Education Early Childhood Urban Education Initiative, and was recently promoted as a chair for the School and Community Partnership Committee under JDETF network in the Education Task Force. Ms. Winter obtained her master's degree in social work from Hunter College School of Social Work and is a licensed master social worker in New York State. She's also a graduate of the New York Community Trust and Baruch College Executive Leadership Fellows Program and the Columbia University BOCES College Education Policy Fellowship Program. Okay, please help me welcome Miss Winter, and welcome the subcommittee, the School and Community Partnership. Thank you very much, everybody. You're in for a treat.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dice. Sorry for that long bio. Good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to come to you on behalf of the School and Community Partnership Committee and present this workshop. We have been working behind the scenes. We know, especially during this time, this workshop is very important and incremental to the work that you are doing in Jamaica. As Dr. Dice said, he mentioned a lot of what I do here in New York, But just for your information, I am a Jamaican by birth. And as Buju say, no matter where in the world you go, I am a Jamaican. So I definitely hail and represent Jamaica. I am from a small district in St. Catherine called Bartnes outside of Old Dabur. And so I will forever be a Jamaican. And so I'm happy that I'm able to give back to our island in this manner. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge my committee and our members who are here on the call. And so I wanted to definitely say thank you to them. And so our committee is involved with making sure that we are connected to law enforcement officers, community leaders, organizers, social worker, and parents. And the purpose of our committees is to bring all of these different entities together to look at PDs, such as the one that we're having here today, and other ways that we could stimulate action on the local level in Jamaica. And basically, we want to bridge the gap between the school and the community. And so we hope that after you leave this workshop today, you're able to get tips and tools of how you could be able to bridge the gap between your school and the community, especially as we're recovering and living through COVID. So our committee members are Miss Alicia Maitland Holness, Mrs. Carol Davis Cummins, Miss Cheryl Bogle Gopal, Mr. Eaton Matt Navy, Miss Latoya Reels, and of course myself, the chair. And as I mentioned before, our committee have been working for the past couple of weeks putting together this presentation. A number of them are here on the call today. They will be working with you in the chat to answer whatever questions you have, but we are definitely excited to bring this presentation to you. I know Dr. Dice went over some ground rules, but I just wanted to go over some more just to let you know how the presentation will go today. So in terms of the agenda, we're gonna just go over some ground rules again. We will go through some key definition of the types of partnerships there are, the steps that are needed in building partnerships, benefits of having a partnership, ways of sustaining partnerships. We do have two guest speakers. One of them is a member of the committee. Another one is a member of the Education Task Force. She's also here in the United States. And they're being called subject matter experts. And basically they will tell you about partnerships that they've developed, why it's important to have these partnerships, and the successes they've had from partnerships. We will just give you some information about partnerships that you could use to support you as you're reopening, and just as you go in the future. We'll go into question and answer, and then we'll close out. So in terms of the ground rules, as you were coming in, we asked you to sign in by entering your name and your school. I know Dr. Dice did ask you to change your name to your first and last name. You will be placed on mute for the duration of the workshop. However, if you want to say something, you have a dying question that really can't wait till the question and answer, please raise your hand. Dr. Dice or one of the committee members will see your hand. We do have a chat going, so if anything, they'll message me in the chat so that I could see, and more than likely I may not stop right away, but as I finish my sentence or my train of thought, I will stop and try to answer your question, and we'll try to unmute you and answer it. If not, one of the general rule I use when I do workshops is I tell people to create a parking lot. And basically a parking lot is a chart where you could just write down your questions. You could put your questions in the chat. Our committee members are on hand. They are writing down questions as they see it. And they'll also help us when we get to the Q&A to let me know whatever questions that come up that we could answer. One of the other things that I will do is that I'm very big on connections. And again, we're about building partnerships. So one of the things that I will say, the first thing that you do is, as you're hearing from people, as you're meeting people in the chat, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, please create one. That is one of the best partnerships that you could create. Because one of the things you could do is you could follow me on LinkedIn, you could connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you have questions, I answer your emails, I answer your messages on LinkedIn. So that's one of the best place to find me. You could also find me on Facebook. I probably answer questions not as fast on Facebook than I do on LinkedIn, because I do use LinkedIn for all my professional endeavors. I'll also put my email in the chat when we get to the end. You could email me. But I do think one of the things that we should do is, as we're on here today, build connection, build partnership. As you're here, people talk about things that they do within their community, within their school, get their information. So I would say utilize the chat as much as you can in building those partnerships and making those connections. And so now we will get into the presentation. Okay, so what is a partnership? So partnership is defined as a relationship where two or more parties come together having a common and compatible goal. They agree to work together for a particular purpose and for some period of time. For this particular presentation, I focus on partnership as it relates to school. Again, a partnership could be different things. Like a lot of people nowadays say marriage is a partnership. People say parenting is a partnership, but for this particular presentation, we're going to look at school. So the type of partnerships that I look at is that a school with parents. So a school and parents could have a partnership. Students, even though the students come to the school, you do enter into different partnership with your students. You enter into partnership with your community, and a community could be defined in a number of different ways. The people surrounding your school immediately could be your community. However, people several miles away could be your community. So it depends on what you describe as your community. Law enforcement officers or law enforcement personnel could be defined as a partnership. Religious institution. One of the things that I learned a few weeks ago as I went into a Jamaican restaurant around Independence, they had something up and they talked about Jamaica having the most, I think they were the second in the world with the most religious institutions. And that was something that I learned about Jamaica for the first time. So definitely I know learning that a lot of schools are connected to a religious institution. So definitely know that that's a partnership that we have. The government. Whether we like it or not, a number of us have partnership with the government. And so that's something that we should know. Workforce. And when I say workforce, here in the United States, we have a number of different places that we go to that's called workforce development centers. And so those are places that we form partnerships with. And especially when we look at our high school students, we form partnerships with them because we want college is not for everyone. And so therefore, not all of our high school students are going to leave high school and decide they want to go to college. And so we may decide that we want to connect them to a workforce development program so they could develop a trade, so they could get a job right out of high school. And so therefore, that's a partnership that you may want to get. And then one of the biggest partnership that I like to have is with corporations. And the reason for that is because I feel like they have the money. And a lot of time they have the money that government may not have. They have the money that I don't have. And then they also have money that I normally hear is called discretionary funding. So they have money that they have to spend at a certain time of year. And they have money that they could give me to do things that when I ask for that money from the government, they may not be able to give it to me, or they tie it to a certain outcome. And so therefore, I always try to form corporate partnership. And therefore, I think that is a partnership that is very important for us to form when it comes to schools. And I'm trying to monitor the chat as I go along. So if I'm going too fast, please let me know. I try to stop and look at the chat. Okay. All right. And everybody could hear me. I saw someone was saying they can't hear me. Okay, good. All right. Okay. So the next one is steps to building partnership. So when you're building a partnership, you should start small. Before diving into a long-term partnership, start with a small project. And based on the outcome of the small project, you can begin to build on more long-term goals and partnership. So for example, if you're looking at doing something with parents per se, don't start and say, I want to partner with every parent of every student in the school. Start by figuring out a group of parents that are engaged. And then from that group of parents, you do a project with that group of parents. If that group of parent is very engaged, they feel like this project is good, it's going well, then you start branching out. So it could be that you said, let me start with, if you're in the primary school, you're starting with the 3rd grade parents. And then after that, you build on it and you say, okay, let me include the 4th grade. Let me include the 5th grade. Even if you're doing it with a corporation, you may say, you know what, I want to build a library for my school. However, I'm going to start with just building a library for the kids in grade 1. And then based on the success of that library and the utilization for the kids in grade 1, you say to them, okay, can we add on books for grade 2 and 3? And then after the success of that, you said, okay, can we now make it school-wide? Because again, a lot of people, when they come into partnership, they want to see outcomes, and most partnerships are outcomes based. And so therefore, if you start large and you can't obtain your goal and you fail, that person may not want to go into partnership with you. So you always want to start small and then you build out. And you also don't know how that partnership will go. So you also want to start with short term and then go long term. So therefore, if you go in it and you know, you're saying, you know what, this is not good for my school, this is not good for my student, this is not good for my community, because their goals and mine don't align. That way you could decide, like, you know what, I want to get out of this, I don't want to stay into this. Versus if you go into a 3-year partnership with someone, you're stuck with this person for the next 3 years, or with this company or this business. So you always want to start with short term first, maybe a 6 months partnership, and then after that you decide to expand and go larger. Always develop a shared vision. So a shared vision will help the partner to work together towards mutual success. This vision should align with the school and the partnership mission, but it must take into account the well-being and academic outcome of the students. So you always have to make sure that your mission, your vision, and the person that you're going to partnership with align. And so therefore, if for example, you go into partnership with a corporation, you have to ensure that that corporation has the best outcome of your students at hand. You can't go in it and say, oh, you know what, I'm going to go into this because they're willing to throw money at my students, but in all actuality, they're really not taking the best interest out of your community. And I say that to say, for example, there have been before, I've been approached, well, my organization have been approached before by companies that wanted to go into partnership with us. However, in this partnership, they were going to gentrify our community, and they were basically moving Black and brown people out of our community. And we said, no, we did not want this partnership because this was our community. So we said, we did not want you to come into our community and push us out. You were not going to use us to then push us out of our community. And so therefore we said no. So not every partnership is a good partnership. So you always have to make sure that the vision is the same, you share the same vision, but also that your mission align, and therefore you're not going away from your mission or their mission. You always want to establish diverse partnership, and you want to make sure that your partnership is a representation of your community. And diversity and representativeness are important factors for partnership success. And so if you're going into a partnership, you want to make sure that it represent what your school represent. And so a lot of time when we go into partnership, we tend to have just administrators at the table. But a true partnership can involve having parents at the table. It could involve having a student at the table. Because again, a lot of what we do within our school affect our students, it affects our parents, and it affects the entire community. So you want to make sure when you're going into partnership that is going to affect your overall community and not just single entity, that there's representatives there and that is very diverse. And I say that to say in Jamaica, it might not be a factor, but you never know. In certain places, when you look at it, you want to make sure the people at the table making the decision about your school, about the success of your community, look like you and represent your community. You can't, I always tell people, you can't have rich people coming in making a decision about poor children. You can't. Because at the end of the day, the poor children is who lives in that community. The poor children is who you teach in that community. So you want to make sure that they have a seat at the table. So it doesn't necessarily have to mean that the student is who's sitting at the table, but you want to make sure someone that represents them have a seat at that table, and they're speaking up for them, and we don't have people making a decision for them that does not represent them. So always make sure that you establish diverse partnership and that everyone is represented. Next, you have to leverage resource. So as a partner, you must always examine your community assets. Take notes of your strength and the areas of greatest needs. This allows you to identify potential new partnerships that complement your shared vision and goal. A lot of times we don't know that we have assets in our communities that's right in front of our face. And so before you even go out there, when you're looking at partnership, look at what assets you have. So take, for example, COVID. One of the things that a lot of people are talking about is when we go back to school and we reopen, the staff to student ratio that we have to have. And where a lot of us are grappling with it, what are we gonna do? And one of the things that I did is that I looked at the community assets. So one of the community assets that we have is that we have a number of colleges that will not reopen. And so we have a number of college students that will be staying home instead of going back to school. They will be doing school online. As a result, a number of these college students will need to do community service hours because now the colleges is kind of requiring things like that. Or they just don't want to stay home and be bored because they're doing colleges for a few hours. Normally when they were on campus, they had cheerleading, they had this sport, they had that sport, they had parties, they had all kinds of things they were doing. Now they're just home in the house with a whole bunch of brothers and sisters who are now home doing remote learning just like them, so they want to get out the house. So one of the things that I'm doing is that I'm providing volunteer opportunities for these college students to come, get trained to actually support students with learning in the classroom. They're not going to be teachers. They're not going to be there all day. They're going to be there for a few hours a day, and they're going to help the teachers with the demand of the classroom. So now here are these college students who are going to be gaining some kind of skills. Some of them didn't even know what they want to do when they graduate. They have some liberal art major. They may decide they want to be a teacher. And we always have a shortage of teachers or educators. And so now you have these, some of them are not necessarily going to be in the classroom, but they may be helping in the office, filing or doing something like that. Because again, we're short staff all over because we have some staff that because of their medical conditions, they really can't come back to the office. So they have to work from home. And so now we have all of these college students who are like, hey, you know, I will do community service hours as long as you sign off on my paperwork. And so that was a way that you're able to look at community assets. Another thing is that there's others who are also working from home. And so therefore, there are ways that you could now use these people that now could help you to now help to staff your classroom. It will be free of charge. Again, you're also helping them. So it's not that they're not getting anything out of this partnership. So now this is a partnership between you and these college students. They're getting skills out of this. They're getting community service hours, and you are getting something from it because you're now getting support from them. It's not only college students, there's other people that are working from home that you could get support from. You also have different corporations where their main offices are closed until God knows when. I hear people that say they're working from home until next summer. Reach out to some of those companies and say, hey, you know, do you guys have a volunteer program? Some people do. How many days per week, you know, can your employees volunteer at a program, and then ask them if they're willing to have their employees partner with your school and come to your school and volunteer for a few hours. Again, it may not be instruction time, but at least if they're able to take the kids into the yard for a couple hours, 2 days a week where they're doing recreational activities with them, that eases some pressure off of your staff and your teachers, and that will allow them to get some kind of break, and that will not allow them to get burnout. So that's a way that you could look at your resources within your neighborhood. Something else that you could do, I know one of the things that was really hard during COVID was lack of access to internet. One of the things that we were doing was we were making copies of curriculums and sending them to families' houses. And so one of the things you could do is partner with your local community and say to people like, who's able to make runs this week, and find out who within your community would go around and drop off these paper. Because when we go back, we're going back on a blended schedule. We're not going back with everyone in the classroom. And so this way you have someone that could support and still bring different things to the families and support the families. In terms of the role of partners, you should always ensure that you define the role of your partners. All partners should be aware of their role. If the partnership requires for someone to be a leader and have people who should be held accountable for outcomes, this should be clearly defined at the very beginning of the partnership. So for example, if it is that the principal is the person that is reporting to, you have a partnership with, say for example, your school have a partnership with JDETF, because we're doing an event together, we're doing a back to school drive, and Dr. Dice is the main contact and your principal is the main contact, that should be known. Even if you're the teacher or you're the assistant principal or you're the guidance counselor who made that connection to your principal, but your principal is the main point of contact, that should be clearly defined. And I say that to say that a lot of times when partnership are not clearly defined and we don't know who the main point of contact is, this causes issues. And so as a result, there could be a lax in communication among the people who are working with this partnership, and then this could cause a disruption in the partnership. So you always should define the role. So it could be, okay, this is the main point of contact. This is the person who's executing the work on the ground. This is the person that's gonna report the outcomes. You always want to define everyone's role in the partnership. And so whenever you come together for a partnership, always sit down and make sure you decide who are the key players within this partnership. You should always consider your partner a member of your team. Clear and well-defined roles ensure that there's no overlap between you and your partner. To make the partnership as valuable as it can be, it should be about learning, growing, and benefiting from each other's knowledge and experience. And so when you consider your partner a member of your team, it makes it easier and a smoother partnership. So I'm going to use parents, for example. We should never look at ourselves as superior to parents and look at parents as inferior to us. It should always be that we could learn from the parents and the parents to learn from us. And so therefore, if we're in a partnership with them, we should all be learning and benefiting from it all at once. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting a lot of messages that there is internet issues. Sorry about that. Dr. Dice, could you check in on the chat? There's a lot of messages in here about the internet. I'm not sure what we could do about it. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, we can't do too much about the internet, so we'll just go on.
Okay, all right. So in terms of the partnership, always ensure that your partner is a member of your team. And if you consider them a member of your team, it makes it easier for you to work with them. And I use parents as an example because a lot of times I've seen it where parents have been seen as, and students too, as an inferior member of a partnership. And we could learn from parents and we could learn from students. And so we consider them an equal member of the team. We could grow and we could benefit from their knowledge and their experience. And especially as we go through COVID, we need the parents as a partner. We need the students as a partner. And so how can we build a seamless partnership with them? How can we make them a member of our team? And how can we build this together so that we could all benefit from this? Because we're all learning together. We went from children being in the classroom with teachers to children being at home and parents being their teachers. No one had an idea that this would happen. And so now again, parents became teachers. And so now how do we bring the parents in, make them a partner, make them a member of the team, and work through this transition, because this will become our new normal. And we don't know when we'll ever go back to everyone being 100% back in school, no more social distancing, and things are back to normal. We don't know if there will ever be a normal. We'll go to a new normal. We don't know if there will ever be a normal. So you have to figure out how can we now make this partnership seamless and then make them a member of our team. Because again, our parents are our equal partners where there's no hierarchy. They're on the same wavelength as us. Okay. So you should always give the partnership room to grow. A valuable partnership should be capable of sharing resources and adapting over time. A partnership will not show immediate success, and you should always leave room for partnership to grow. And I will use parents again. I remember probably 4 years ago when I started in a school, we started an initiative called Teach Me Tuesday. And the initiative was basically for parents to come to the school every Tuesday, and the teachers would work with the parents and basically teach them what the children were learning in the classroom. And they were basically supposed to work with the children at home based on what they were learning in the classroom. And these were children who were struggling, and we were basically trying to get them from a level 2 to a level 3 or a level 4. We started year 1, we may have had 25 parents that came. Year 2, we went up to maybe 50. We did not give up. We continued to partner with parents. And then we went from Teach Me Tuesday and we started doing learning fairs. And so we did one in the spring and in the winter, and we partnered with Thanksgiving. So if many of you don't know, Thanksgiving is a big holiday here in the US where it's all about food. And so we started doing this big feast. And then in the spring, we did it with Easter, where we had Easter basket, and we knew that food bring people out. So we started doing these events and doing them with food. By year 3, we went from 50 to 125 parents. And this past year, right before COVID hit, we had 385 parents, and our school had 420. And so of the 420, we had 385 parents participate. And I say that to say it took time for this partnership to grow. And we did not give up. We went from 25 in year 1 to 385 in year 3 to year 4, because we waited for this partnership to go, and we tried different things every year. We tried something new, and we invested resource, and we invested time, and we adapted as things changed, because this was something we wanted to work. And so I would say is that if you value a partnership, invest in that partnership. it will take time and it will take energy for this to grow, but it will grow. And again, as you guys heard from my bio, I'm very big on building community and working with families and parents. So a lot of my work has been around that. And so I was definitely one person that was not going to give up on that partnership. And it's fine, I'll give up my Saturdays. I would go in, and it was buying raffle prizes and doing things and getting my friends to come in and be speakers and trying to get the NBA players and NFL players and whoever I could get, no-name players, whoever. It was something that would be excited for them, something that would make them come in. Because once I got them hooked, once they came in, I knew they would see the importance of it and they would continue to come in. And even after COVID hit, when we did the one after COVID hit, we still had parents log in via Zoom because they knew the importance of it. So we weren't giving food, we weren't giving away stuff, we were doing it online, but parents still logged in, and we still had about 300 parents that log in online because we already had them hooked and they understood the importance of the event. So even though it wasn't in person, they weren't getting anything, we built this partnership, and now this partnership was successful. Ensure there's honesty and transparency in your partnership. I would always say, make sure they know what the issues are. Talk about your lack of resources if there is. Make sure that there's mutual understanding about expectation, roles, responsibility, and accountability. If your partnership is with a parent, make sure they understand what you expect of them. If your partnership is with a student, make sure they understand what is expected of them. If your partnership is with a church, make sure they understand what is expected of them. If your partnership is with law enforcement, make sure they understand what is expected of them. I mean, I know for me, I have a partnership with a program called Big Blue, which is a part of the NYPD. And given the unrest that was happening with the police department, I had to sit down with them and have a conversation about, when they were doing their presentation, what it would look like. Because I said to them, right now, our community don't trust you. I like the partnership because it works. Most of our children like the partnership. However, their parents weren't feeling the same way. So how were we gonna approach them? Because again, when the kids are in school and you come in and you deliver your service, it's different. But now that we were online and you were gonna deliver your services, and the parents would be in the background and the big brother was gonna be in the background and the cousin may be in there and they may say, you know, F the police or whatever they'll say, how are you going to address that? Because you're sitting there, you're hearing it. And so I had to sit with those partners and say, hey, how do we want to address this partnership? How do we want to address what's going to come out of this when we get on this screen and we had this Zoom call? And so I think you have to be honest, like you have to have those conversations. And we did have that conversation. Like, this is not going to be a pretty call. It's not going to be all peaches and cream like how we had it before. It's going to be tough, but let's talk about it. Because again, I felt like it was still an important partnership for me to have, for my students to have. I didn't want to get rid of it, but I also felt like it was our reality. We needed to know that given the climate we were living in, that it changed. So let's address what it's going to be. So I think you definitely have to look at your partnership and evaluate them. Things are going to come up. You may have a partnership with, you know, your local politician, and it's election time and something is happening. And you may have to tell them like, hey, you know, given what is happening right now because of elections, we may have to pause our partnership for a bit. And after the election, we could pick up, because we don't want our school to be associated or be seen in a certain manner. Because those are things that we have had to do before. Like we have partnership with elected officials, and when election time comes, my organization will say, hey, we don't want to seem like we're endorsing anybody, we're putting anyone anywhere. So right now, you know, we can't publicly say anything. So therefore, you've been a committed partner with us. We appreciate the partnership, but they also have to understand that as, you know, if you're a nonpartisan group, you have to remain that way. And so you definitely have to make sure there's always honesty and transparency when it comes to partnership. All right. Oh, we'll go back. So benefits of partnership. So the benefits is partnership can provide more comprehensive, coordinated, and holistic services. The more people you have that come together, the more services you could provide. You could achieve administrative efficiency and savings by avoiding overlap and duplication. So for example, if you have a number of schools within a small radius, small space, and things such as that, depending on how you could partner together, you may be able to share resources that could avoid you from overlapping and duplicating services. Access certain resources, share resources, or make better use of limited resources such as space, funding, equipment. Again, if you're in a community and there's a community center, there's a football field, a track and field that you could use, there may be a way for you as different schools to partner. You may be competing against each other, but you may use the same field. And that's the way that you could partner with a local community center or something like that. You could carry out an initiative that would be difficult if you were doing it alone, or you may not be able to do it alone, but if you partner with someone else, you'll be able to do it. Though, if you get a partner, it may be the only way that you could do a new small initiative, especially if you're like, for example, I know I've been talking to a few people that talk about the basic schools, for example. I believe that's what they're called in Jamaica, that a lot of those, and here they're called early childhood centers, and a lot of those struggle to get access to funding here in America, not only just New York. We struggle with the same thing. And a lot of times, you know, we network together, we form partnership, and we apply for grants together. And when we get the money, we divide it among ourselves and say, hey, you know, you get this certain amount, you get this certain amount. And then that's how we do it. Because sometimes you doing it by yourself, you may get a small pool versus when you all come together, you get the bigger trunk. You have a stronger application, you have more resources that you could pull together, and that work. Benefits of a partnership, it enable more effective exchange. You're able to share and refer more families. And it also enhance community participation and increase involvement in decision making. Does anyone have any questions so far? I know I said a lot. If you do, you could start putting them in the chat. The committee members will start capturing them because we're getting to the last few slides before we have our guest speakers speak. Okay. So sustaining partnerships. So now we went through how you build partnership. We also went through what the benefits of partnership are. And so now we're going to go through how you sustain your partnerships. So you already build them, you know what the benefits are. And so now that you have these partnerships, they're established, how do you sustain them? And so you always ensure there's clear and consistent communication. So you ensure there's open, honest, and clear communication. This will help to avoid unnecessary misunderstanding and potential conflict situations. Develop a forum that encourages partners to meet regularly to mutually problem solve, exchange information, and learn from one another expertise. So one of the things that I would definitely say is important when you have partnership is to have meetings. A lot of people feel like meetings can be redundant. Why do we meet so often? There are times when there's too many meetings. I definitely want to say that sometimes some meetings can be an email. They don't have to be a meeting. However, I do feel like there are partnerships where people don't meet at all. And so, for example, if you have a funder, for example, that gives you money, but they tell you they only want to meet with you once a year to go over, or they only want a report from you once a year to go over how your program is doing, I would say to them, you know, I understand that you only want a report from us once a year. However, is it okay if we check in every 6 months? And it's okay to ask that, and that would look good on your part, because if, for example, you're supposed to meet an outcome and you're not meeting it, it will be good for you at the 6-month mark to let them know. It looks bad when you get to them a year later and you're saying to them, oh, you know, we were supposed to have 100 children that was scoring over 85, but we only have 70. And they're going to say, okay, why didn't we know about it? Why we only know about it now? Or we're not going to continue funding you because you didn't reach the goal. However, if at 6 months you say, you know, we're struggling, we only have 70, and these are the reasons why, they may be able to work with you, or they may say, you know what, let's revise your goal and drop the number to 275. And so now you don't have to reach 100, you just need to reach 75, and you may be able to work super hard to get the additional 5. And so I definitely think that it's always a good gesture on your part to go about initiating that first. When it comes to parents, you could definitely schedule a forum to meet with parents. Sometimes, a lot of times, I've seen this happen where parents only hear from us when things are not going well with their children. It's okay to reach out to a parent and check in just to say, hey, I'm calling because your child did blah, blah, blah well today. Or even if you don't want to do that, schedule a forum where you're saying, you know what, on a monthly basis, I'm going to bring all my parents together and I'm going to have a conversation with them about what we're doing in the classroom outside of the parent-teacher conference. Because a lot of time parents feel like, you know, I'm not going to the parent-teacher conference. All I'm going to hear is about how you don't do this in class, you don't do that, for the children that are not well behaved. For the children that are behaving, are doing well, the parents feel like, well, you're doing good, you're a good kid, I don't need to go. And then some of them, not all parents, so if there are parents here listening, I'm not saying all parents are like that, and there are parents that will decide like, you know, you're doing well, because my parents were like that. They were like, you know, you're straight A's, you're doing good, you're a part of every club, I don't need to go. And they never went to a parent-teacher conference. Never. I think my senior year in high school was the first time my parents ever showed up to a parent-teacher conference. But they felt like I was doing well in school, so there were no need for them to go, because the only time you really go to parent-teacher conference was if your child was doing bad. And so for them, it's like, you know, we'll kill you if you are doing bad, so you're doing good, so we don't need to go. And so therefore, I think creating that forum where parents could come together and just share among themselves and know that we're not going to really talk about, you know, our children behavior or anything. We're just going to share how we could support them in learning that may be helpful in really getting parents to partner with you. The other thing in terms of communication is listen to your partners. Listening is critical in effective communication. It demonstrates respect and promote awareness of strength, biases, and conflicting interests. A lot of us listen to respond and don't necessarily listen to listen. And so I definitely think listening is very important. And again, especially when we're partnering with our community or we're partnering with parents, we should definitely listen and listen to what they have to say. Sometimes, you know, parents are communicating with us that I don't have the time. I have 3 jobs. I have this, I have that. So, and it's listening to hear what they're communicating with us and saying, okay, I hear you're saying this and this and this. However, here's how we could support you, and here's how we're going to partner with you, or here's how I could partner with you. Because just like they have a lot on their plate, you have a lot too. However, if you could come to a compromise, if they could hear you and you could hear them, you could all come to a compromise and come up with a way that you could all walk away with a beneficial partnership. Ensure that the partnership are mutually beneficial. And so authentic partnership have active leadership and participation from both sides who work towards aligned goals and support each other's needs. And so therefore, again, you have to make sure that it's mutually beneficial. And so if you're partnering with your parents, your partnership with students, you're partnering with a local entity, whoever you're partnering with, again, a local community group, whoever you're partnering with, make sure that both sides, the goals align and that you have support from each other. You both want the same outcome. You're both aiming for the same thing. And that way, it's beneficial. So both of you guys are walking away with something. So if you're partnering with parents, you want more participation from the parents, and the parent is walking away feeling that I'm supporting my student in learning. And in the end, the student is benefiting. So basically the common goal here is making sure that we're both supporting the academic outcome of this student. And so that would be the common goal for the teacher and the student, is we're both supporting the academic outcome of this student. Evaluate partnership. So evaluation plays a key role in developing and sustaining community partnership. Evaluation helps to determine whether goals or objectives are met. This involves identifying strengths in areas for improvement in structure, planning, and activity implementation. Having an evaluation plan in place will help to determine if successful strategies can be supported and replicated. So for example, if you decided, the example I gave you guys earlier about the parents, the Teach Me Tuesday that we did for the parents, we did have an evaluation plan. And so after every meeting, we sat down, we looked at what were the outreach method that we used, we looked at weather, we looked at the outreach method, we looked at everything that happened after each event. And based on that, we would look at, okay, why did we think parents didn't show up? And then based on that, we would go back to the table and we would look, okay, what can we do different for the next one as we plan? And based on our evaluation, we were able to add different components to each one. And so as we look back, as we look at this one now, and we went back and look at the table, like we have a table in the room that we look at all 3 years, now year 4, and we went back looking from when we first started, we look at, okay, wow, look at all the different things that changed. Like we went from, okay, we started just doing it randomly. Then we did it around the holidays. Then we look at weather. Then we look at adding incentives. Then we look at who would call. And then we look at, and it was very intentional. So, okay, teachers had a relationship with parents, you call. The support staff had a relationship, you call. And so individual people were calling parents and inviting them, because parents are gonna come if they like you and you invited them. So there were different strategies that we use. So I definitely think you have to evaluate your partnership, look at it and see what works and what doesn't work. What are your strengths? What are your areas for improvement? Again, one of the things we did was look as much as the weather. Like if it's too cold outside, people are not gonna come. So therefore, do you do something on a very cold day? If you look at the weather and you project that it's gonna snow, cancel that event. You know, here in New York, if you look at it, if you're in Jamaica and it's gonna thunderstorm, cancel it, because you know parents may not show up. So you definitely have to make sure you're always evaluating and you're looking at your partnership. You're looking at whatever it is that you're doing, especially as it goes with when it comes to parents. Okay, consistent reporting and follow-up. So ensure that there's consistent reporting or follow-up system. If you're a recipient in a partnership, you should always update your partner on your progress before they ask about the progress or the project or partnership. And I say that to say that in the past, I said, if you are getting funded from someone or you're working with someone, say, for example, again, if someone decided that they were donating computers to your school and it's 6 months in that you have the computer, don't wait for them to ask you how the computer is going, how many kids are using it, how is it working. After 3 months in, send them an email, send them a report, take pictures. Now we're in a digital age. Send them posts on your Facebook page and tag them in it so that they could see what is happening with the donation they make, so that in the future they will think about you and they'll say, you know what, when I donated to this school, they kept us updated on what they were doing with the things that we donated. So I'm gonna keep donating to them. I'm gonna keep partnering with them. If you have a group of people that came and volunteer with you for a day and they clean up your garden or they clean up your yard and they painted it, after they leave, send them a report to let them know, on this day you came and this was what you did, and as a result of what you did, this is what happened. Always have a consistent reporting or follow-up. Always send a thank you email, always send a thank you letter. Always make sure that you're following up, because that little bit will count. The person will come back to you. If it's parents that you're working with and the parent is participating in a project with you, always make sure that you follow up with them about the progress. So if it is that you give them an assignment to work with their children at home, now that they're doing remote learning, follow up with them to say, hey, based on what you're doing with the child at home, this is where they're at. They were here before, and now this is where they're at. Because again, before they even have to ask you, they will feel appreciated, but also they will feel more encouraged to continue supporting the child. But if you decide that you're not going to follow up and they have to come and ask you, then it seems like what they're doing is not really appreciated or even acknowledged. So you always want to make sure you do consistent reporting and follow up. And again, you could also do monitor satisfaction through periodic survey. So I'm very big on survey. I survey my staff. I survey my parents. You may not want to hear it. A lot of times I read it and I'm like, really? That's what you think after all I did? However, sometimes those reports, whatever parents are feeling, whoever is feeling, you definitely want to hear it, because it gives you room. It gives you time to work on whatever you're doing. And so I think it's always good to get feedback, and that's a part of your follow-up. And so you definitely always want to make sure that you do some kind of survey, and something as easy as Google Forms could make you do a quick survey. Okay, I did this with parents, or I did this with someone. What is your feedback on it? 5 quick questions, yes, no, agree, disagree, blah, 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 and they're done. They send it back to you and you're all done. Or you could have the questions on a notepad as they're picking up. As you see them, you ask them the question and you get a quick survey. But you always want to make sure that you're surveying people as you go along. And last but not least, you always want to identify potential challenges and solutions. So give people the chance for having different view and let it be heard. Listen and try to understand the different point of view, and always seek common ground. And I think especially when it comes to when we're working with parents, they may not have the same view as we do. I know for me, one of the biggest challenge that I may have is especially with my early childhood, is the parents always tell me that they pay us to teach their children, and I always remind them, you don't pay us, the government pay us. However, we are all teachers for your children, and so we teach them in school, but we want you to teach them at home also. However, I also always give them the chance. I listen to them, I hear their views, I say, thank you, I hear you. However, I never say but. And I will urge you, if you don't take anything away from this workshop today, listen to this. When you're speaking to parents, don't say but. Use the word however. I say to them, however, and then I make my point. However, I'm not saying but, because when I'm saying but, that means that they're automatically hearing that I don't agree with them. I say, I hear you, however, and then I make my point. And then I end with, now, can we agree to? And then we'll agree to. And so I definitely think that we always listen. We all are entitled to opinions, and our goal is to seek common ground. You want to also develop a process to resolve conflict in advance of serious difference of opinion. And so if it's whether you're a principal or a teacher or in other educational capacity, it's you want to make sure you have some kind of process that you develop that you can use to avoid conflict. And so this is something, when it comes to partnership, this is something that you want to have in place. So whether it is partnership with parents, so we have processes in place where my staff know if you have a difference in opinion with parents, they know, and they tell me this is not stop and shop. The customer is always right. But for them, I tell them, unless it's some serious allegations or something, the parents, they're right. We will sit there, we'll figure it out with them, and we'll go from there. When it comes to community partner and things such as that, we're at their disadvantage a lot of times, and we sit there and we figure out, okay, how can we solve this? Because again, if a partnership is important for you, you want to figure out how do you understand their perspective and how do you resolve conflicts. And when it comes to parents especially, and I'm spending a lot of time talking about parents because I know I'm looking at the chat as I'm going along, and I see a lot of parents asking questions. And I know Miss Nicola will talk a little bit when she come on about parents, but I know a lot of times that's one of the hardest partnerships that we have to deal with. But I think, as I said before, one of the things I've viewed as something that people struggle with is seeing parents on an equal playing ground as us. A number of us, when we get in the position of us being the parents, when we're on the other side of the table, then we're on the same playing field as the others. But I always try to think about it like, if I was the parent standing over there, how would I want to be treated if I'm the parent standing on the other side? So therefore, I always think about it in that way, and like, how do I want this parent to partner with me? And again, my grandmother always tell me, you gotta get them on your side. You can't fight fire with fire, and so therefore, I can't be firing your fire. So therefore, I always try to figure out, how do I make sure we get to the same level playing field, and then we could work from there. So I would definitely say that when it comes to conflicts and when it comes to parent, if you don't walk away with anything, never say but. When you have difference in opinion, just say however, because that would definitely help the conversation to go in a different way. So next we're gonna go into the slides actually got mixed up. So we're going to look at, I'm going to go quickly through potential partners and resources. So here I put that potential partnership and resources you could look at is, again, parents and students, community members, which is like pastors, law enforcement, the corporations I have listed here. This was research I did on like Jamaica and who are the people you could partner with there, in terms of if you're in the education industry. So you have Lasco, Price Smart, Price Philanthropy, Scotiabank Foundation, the Gleaner. Sorry about that. Yeah. Then UNICEF Jamaica, and then like the Usain Bolt Foundation. In terms of like alumni association, we have some listed that are here operating abroad, and then I have religious institutions. And so, so that's that in terms of that. So now I believe Mr. Matt Namey, he got cut off, so we're gonna bring up Miss Nicola, who will talk about partnership with parents. And so Miss Nicola Myers is a doctoral candidate in administration and leadership. She's an assistant principal in Texas. And so she'll talk to you guys a little bit about school and parent partnership. Nicola?
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Nicola. How are you guys? I'm so excited to be here. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, everybody can hear you okay.
Oh, okay, good, good. I'm excited to be here. And thank you, Ms. Winter. Everything that you're saying is exactly what I'll actually echo here in a few minutes. I'd like to start out with a quote by William Temple. And one of the things that he did say was, the most influential of all educational factors is the conversation that takes place in a child's home. So for everyone that's on here today, yes, I was born in St. Elizabeth. I did attend Hampton High School. Yay, Hampton High School students, if you're out there. And I also went to Epping Forest All Age. That's also in St. Elizabeth. So without further ado, it did take a village when we're talking about community partnership for me to get to where I am today. And so that actually speaks volumes to the role that the community plays in our lives. Ms. Winter earlier defined what partnership was, and she mentioned that it's a relationship where two or more parties have common and compatible goals. As an assistant principal here in Texas, I make sure that I bring a committee together. I know she spoke earlier about making sure you have equal representation on your team. So you have students, you have community members, you have parents, you have teachers, you have administrators. Very, very important that the leadership of the school is at the table. That is very critical to the success of any program or any initiative that we are trying to put in place to help students. So some of the principles that layer an effective school partnership from where I sit over here, all families in school want what's best for their children. Parents send us the best they have at home. And that's something that I tell my teachers frequently, you know, when they talk about, well, this child doesn't listen, this child doesn't do this, it's the best they have. It is up to us as educators to nurture that child when they enter the gates of the school. However, it's more important for educators and parents to create that environment so when the kids come to school, they feel a part of the community. And I'll get into cultural relevance, and I know Ms. Winter touched on that earlier with the diversity. But we have to make sure that we're cultivating the right ground for these students and for the families to grow and thrive. All children have the right to the opportunity to reach their full potential. Understanding the needs of your students is going to come from the partnership you build with your parents. They will tell you, they will show you their background. And it's up to you now to sit down with them and say, okay, let us think of how we could best come together to meet the needs of this child. You know, too often I see teachers writing lesson plans, and for the educators on here, you know, we're writing lesson plans for a class. Understand the diversity within that classroom setting and make sure the lessons that you're planning are culturally relevant to the students in front of you. And I say that to say, we have to take the same approach with the entire school community. We have to plan for all the different cultures that we have, all the different backgrounds that we have, and understand that information is going to come from the community or from the parents that you have on your team. And if someone would monitor the chat for me, because I do get caught up and keep talking and forget to go down there and check. Okay, so another point I want to talk about is the healthy partnership. Make sure that the connections between the parents and the school community is positive. Because in order for us to move the students to a different level of social competency or even emotional well-being, we have to make sure that the conversation and the relationship that we're building is positive. If not, the parents don't want to talk to us. They don't have time for us because they feel we're not listening to them. So make sure that we're creating healthy partnership. And based on my experience here, I tell them all the time, send me the parent who has their hair on fire, because I know exactly how to hose them down. And that's my little word I always use, because I approach them with respect. I'm not going to approach a parent who's already angry or upset, and like Ms. Winter said, in a condescending manner, or in a manner which have them feeling inferior. This is a level playing field, guys, because at the end of the day, the outcome needs to be student achievement, student improvement, and community relationship. For true partnership to exist, we need to make sure that we have two-way communication. What COVID has done for us is shown us a different way to communicate with our parents. Emails. I know a lot of the participants on here, or a few of them, expressed having connectivity issues. And that's the same for us here in America and for families in Jamaica. I do have families in Jamaica right now who have issues with connectivity. So when we're talking about two-way communication, we have to make sure that we're providing different ways to reach our parent, not just rely on email or text messages or whatever the case may be, but start posting up flyers. You know, I remember as a little girl, and I believe Miss Maitland, Elisa is in here, she can attest to this, because we grew up in the same community, in the same family, as a matter of fact. And very often, one of us had to run to the shop to go pick something up for our family members. Well, I think Alicia was a baby, so we did the running. But what I'm trying to say is, have flyers out there on the counters. So when families come in, they could pick up a flyer and say, okay, at Epping Forest, they're having a town hall meeting tomorrow. A lot of our families don't have internet, so we have to create these true partnerships however we can to make sure the parents are hearing us, the parents are connecting with what's going on in the schoolhouse. So start thinking outside the box and not just rely on email and internet situations to get to our parents. Start using the shop counters. You know, I don't think there's one business person on the island right now that would say, no, you can't put some flyers on here. That's going to benefit the community that they live in. Secondly, it's going to be a win-win, because you're bringing business to them anyways, because if they know you're a community partner that will have flyers with what's going on in the school community, more people are going to start coming to your store or to your shop because they're going to get information. So when we're thinking true partnership, guys, let's keep in mind creative ways in which we could reach out to our parents. Let's see here. So research shows, and this is just, I'm like Ms. Winter mentioned, I'm currently a doctoral candidate. And so some of the things that I found myself doing lately is a lot of research. So research shows that family engagement in schools improves students' achievement, it reduces absenteeism, and it restores parent confidence in their child education. So students with involved parents or other caregivers earn high grades, test scores, and have better social skills and show improved behavior. On my campus right now, it's a middle school campus with about 800 students from 6th through 8th grade. Our students that know their parents are involved, they act different. They behave different. The parents understand better when they're in the house what's taking place. And I say this all the time, it takes a village to raise our children. So when the parents are coming in and they know, okay, this teacher has this expectation, the campus has expectations. When they go home, regardless of what the kids are gonna tell them, they're like, nah, that's not exactly true because I was there today, this is what I saw, this is what I heard, so now let's start over. And so you have to understand that also the students who see their parents on the campus, their behavior changes and they're gonna work harder because they want when their parent walks through the doors or through the hallways, they see their name on the wall because they've achieved something. So let's keep some of these in mind of what the research shows because it actually does prove that it works. Partnerships, Ms. Winter mentioned earlier that we need to make sure that we're viewing each other as equals. So we want to make sure that we view partner as making equally valuable contribution. At the end of the day, this partnership is going to work for the students. And as an educator, as a parent, because I'm an educator and I'm a parent, the outcome for me at the end of the day is that my child is successful. My goal for you at the end of the day is that your child is successful because they were on my campus, under my watch. And again, we as a community come together to put some of these programs together based on the needs of our students. We need to ensure that we're respecting the student needs and preferences. Ms. Winter mentioned earlier, having the students at the table. This is their campus. This is about them. And who better to tell you than the children? I have two very opinionated children in my household. Well, they're adults now, but they will tell you, why are you guys wasting time doing this? We don't care about this stuff. Let's talk about this. So again, we want to make sure that everything we're doing is intentional. It has like intentional, it's purposeful, and it's going to work for the students in a positive manner. Now, we need to address some of the barriers to involvement in school by families and actively help uninvolved parents to become involved. I was reading some of the chat while Ms. Winter was speaking, and I seen several individuals mentioned low parental involvement. We have to do what we have to do to get our parents in the school. Last year, I presented at the state conference for Texas PTA. And one of the things that I mentioned to the parents is start raising funds. I'm not sure how hard it is in Jamaica to raise those funds, but I guarantee you, if the parents know that it is for their student and it's gonna make the community look better, the students more successful, they'll show up. So one of the things that I did was I raised funds and we had a bus. So, the campus I'm on is considered Title I. And so 75% of my students are living in poverty. This happens in America, guys, not just, the Caribbean countries or whatever. But so my parents are like, well, I don't have gas to come up there and I don't have this and I don't have time and, I have to cook dinner. I work 2 jobs. You know what I did? I removed the excuses, peel away the layers of excuses. I raised funds and I had a bus go through the community. And I sent home flyers with the kids because the first thing they're gonna tell you, I don't have internet. We would pick up parents at these bus stops for the parent conference today at school. So guess what? There's no more excuse about not having gas or not being able to walk to the school because it was raining, because I'm coming to get you. So, intentionality is at the heart of everything I do. So we wanna make sure that, I apologize about that. So we want to make sure that whatever we're doing, we're making sure that the parents have little excuse as possible as to why they can't make it to the schoolhouse. Another thing I do is I feed them. I do a spaghetti dinner. Why? Because spaghetti's quick. So I'll do a spaghetti dinner because parents will say, well, I have to cook for the other children. Bring all of them. But we have to create the environment for the parents to come, and we have to peel away the layers of excuses so the parents, they'll be, okay, well, I'm making it easy for you to show up. And then when they get there, we start talking about what are we doing for school improvement? What are we doing for academic achievement? But first you have to find a way to get them in the house. I was in Jamaica in November and I stopped at one of the elementary campuses and I saw this gentleman in a minivan. He came to pick up the students to go on a field-based instruction experience. There you have it. Pay him to go into the community and say, you know what? At 4 o'clock, we're gonna pick up from Mr. Green's shop and we're gonna go to the next stop. So you let the parents know where these stops are raise funds, pay a couple $100s, but again, you want to make sure you're getting your parents to the school by any means necessary. Dr. Dice, I don't know if there's any questions in the chat for me. Anything I need to answer?
No, we're gonna have Mr. McNamee go, and then we'll open it and answer all the questions, and you could jump in and answer anything
okay.
at that point.
And okay, thank you. And
no
so,
problem.
So, you know, for the sake of time, looking at successful partnership during COVID, because when we went out of school in March for spring break, I was actually supposed to be in Jamaica at Mount Airy Primary School for that week. And so we didn't know when we went out of school that we were going to be gone for 4 or 5 months. And so now we're talking about how do we partner with our parents during COVID, because right now our campus is closed to outside visitors. So we can't have the parents come to the school. Zoom is our best friend right now, like we're using the platform right now. So now we're actually using a lot of Zoom conferences for parent conferences. We're providing resources for the parents on how to use some of these platforms. Let's not forget, a lot of our parents are not tech savvy. I have my first degree is computer programming. My son has a degree in information systems technology. So a lot of times if I'm working on stuff, I don't have time to do the legwork. I'll just ship it off to him. However, there's a lot of our families who don't know how to use these platforms. Again, put a one-page flyer together on how to get on Zoom. Because believe it or not, this is the direction that we're going right now with COVID. And again, email it, put it in the mail. Put it in the mail or email it, or again, put them at the shop counters and whatever the case may be, so the parents know that, hey, education, I believe in educating our parents. So that's one thing that we could partner with our parents during COVID by providing the resources that they need. Create parent guides. If the students are going to be using, here we're using Schoology and Nearpod and, you know, PlayPod, whatever you call the different situations we're using here. I'm not sure what they're doing in Jamaica when the kids go back. But even the packets, if you're going to provide the students with packets, you might want to solicit some parents to come to the campus and say, hey, I need each packet dropped off to this house because the parents are not able to come get it. So you pull a team of parents together because they know maybe it's a grandparent that's raising the child and can't come to the school. Again, we know the older population of students are more vulnerable to COVID. So you want to minimize that. But again, come up with creative ways in which we can reach our parents and get them involved. Putting a parent guide together in that package so the parents understand what the expectations are for the kids to complete their work. Feeding stations, and I know we have another speaker coming on, so I won't belabor the time. But feeding stations, I'm not sure what that looks like there, but I know here we're providing breakfast and lunch to our students. Again, our kids are high poverty on my campus, so most of them, the only time they have a hot meal is when they come to school. So we have different spots in the community where our nutrition staff will position themselves, and the kids who live at this bus stop will come and pick up breakfast and lunch. Maybe that's something you want to do. I'm sure there's going to be some things tied to, nutrition and handling food and stuff like that. So we really don't want to get the parents involved in passing out lunches, because here they have to have some type of certification, food certification. But again, provide ways in which the students and the parents can access resources. Let's see.
We have to bring the next speaker on. Sorry, we're pressed for time.
Oh yes,
but can you send your presentation to me, and I'll definitely send it out to the attendees so they could see what you had to share?
Yes, this is the last slide I have, and I just want to read this.
Okay.
Actually, I was at the last slide. It says, we embrace that we get to create the new normal, and we decide what kind of relationships we want to have. We ask ourselves, do we want to be a community of people who complain about each other, or do we want to be a community who work together for the good of our school family? I appreciate you guys. I thank you for the time to speak. Again, I will make my presentation available. I did post all my contacts in the chat. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. You definitely had great information. Again, we will share all of these presentation when we send out the email. You guys have our email account. And as I said before at the beginning of the presentation, Ms. Myers, you do have LinkedIn, right?
Yes, I posted my Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, my website, my everything in the chat. And
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McNamee, you have like 5 minutes and then we'll answer. I took note of the questions I've seen so far and we'll answer them. Sorry guys, we're running a little bit behind. Are you on? If not, I'll go into the questions.
Yeah, you're
Yes.
on now. Yes, you're totally on.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eaton. I'm the principal of Broadleaf Primary School in Manchester. I am a St. Thomas born and bred, moved to Manchester. There's job, everything else in St. Thomas. So I'll let you just guess why I moved to Manchester. As a principal, one of the main thing that of what has already been said, and of course, it makes no sense I repeat because I only have 5 minutes. But I believe creating my own experience. I went to Broadleaf Primary School in 2015, and but one of my first experience was a parent consultation day. Now, on that particular day, I was told that parents do not normally turn up for those events. And so I began doing my search. I found that what normally used to happen is that you just send a reminder with the students verbally for parents to turn up at parent consultation. And so you end up with like 20% or less parents at parent consultation day. I began thinking, and one of the things I did was I created some appointment cards. I personalized the appointment card. I was told by my teachers that I was wasting time, I was wasting ink, and I was wasting energy. But I believe it create my own experience, I say. And what I did, I personalized those. I gave parents particular time to come and split their teachers. And on particularly, we had over 9% of parents turning to consultation. And so I began to realize that I cannot take person's word for everything. I learned to create my own experience. One of the things in creating your experience is you have to sell your vision. As a principal, my constituents must know where I want to take the institution, what it is that I bring to the institution. And so I must know my constituents in order to sell my vision. And so community talks, it depends on the school that you are. If it's a community school like one that I had, community talks, church service, funeral, everywhere you'd see Ms. McNamee, because I am now part of the community. And what I did also is I create some individualized data capture sheet for the children, so that we would know exactly parents' occupation, we'd know what time parents go to bed, so you get an idea of the type of parents you are dealing with. And that's good springboard for you to start building the partnership that we built. When one opportunity I got was with there was an unfinished library that was constructed by Jamaica. There were some problems and it wasn't completed. And so I took the opportunity to complete such. After completing that, I did a grand opening. Jamaica was invited, and when they came, what I did ensured that I liked all that they did, and I also, in that particular teach of mine, I ensured, I mentioned that I wanted to continue the partnership because my students were partitioned by chalk board, and it was difficult in order for them to get for teaching and learning take place, even though we had 100% literacy rate in 2015, and we are averaging like 80, 70 that. But if we had single classrooms, I know that have been even better. And so I drummed down. When that program was finished, I was told by one of the directors that they are going to come on board and assist. No, that got antenna up because I wanted to school. I want my children to be in the classroom. So what I did, I contacted the regional director. I leave anybody out. The regional director I contacted and crafted the letter together to Jamal. So the Ministry of Education would have known about what it is I want to do with was there, and she of course would have been off with the children. And so after having done that, what I did, I approached Jamal. No, Jamal responded and said they would have given me $4.5 million just to construct one grade 6 classroom. I said, okay, thank you. And so what I did is that we had our first executive meeting of the PTA. I called my executive together, and when we sat and we discussed what I did from the get, which was very honest, I let them know how much money I got. And that is very, very important. Once money is coming into anything, you have to ensure that persons really know how much it is that you are spending or that you got, because persons are really interested in knowing what it is that are spending. And so having learned of the amount of money that I had, then I went to having known the amount of money, I also let them know that we should choose somebody from the community. This is not a contract that we're going to tender for somebody outside to come and eat something from. This is something that we're going to have a community project. And so we want somebody from the community to run it. And so we identify a parent, and that parent, we know a little about identify the parent, and we know to the bigger PTA. We sold idea to the PTA, and the PTA bought into the idea. And so when the PTA bought into the idea, what we did, we basically started the project. And once the project started, we were able to flow smoothly to some extent. Not that we didn't have problems, we did end up with issues because not all parents will be on board, and we all know that persons will say out of the norm or whatever, but at the end of the day, majority of the parents on board, and the openness of the communication was important. Also, I spoke their language. It's difficult to be speak with your parents, and so you would not want to be in a position where you're speaking high-flown language when it is not being necessarily understood by your constituents. And so to get to their level. During that summer, I spent the entire summer at the school. When it was time for lunch, I was there, sitting under the tree, eating, doing the chatting, whatever with them. We had about 5% of volunteer work into the particular project. And the gentleman that was parent that was contracting the project, he said that, he's going to build more than one classroom, whatever. I knew that money could do that. But the parents bought into vision and wanted more than one classroom. So I could not stop there. I went along. When we were about 80% through with the project, money was finished. Money was done. At that point, we had covered the entire structure. We were having 4 classrooms, 1 library, and an administrative area. And so at that point, I called on the regional director. There is no way that the Ministry of Education could have allowed a community to partner to such a strong level and leave us halfway. And so they now came aboard and pumped some cash to finish the project. And I tell you, partnership, after the project was complete, we had a grand opening. And what we have to be the content of is of your sponsors and what it is that they want from the relationship, because nobody sponsors without wanting something from the relationship. Jamaica wanted publicity. They wanted Jamaica to hear what it is that they are doing. And so I do not feel of sharing with the entire Jamaica what it is that Jamaica is doing. I post on the school's Facebook page, I posted WhatsApp groups, I post every opportunity I get to speak the community. I spoke of Jamaica is doing, and they heard. And the more they heard, the more they came aboard and started assisting us. And then after the past students came on board and everybody. And so we just had a grand opening. At the grand opening, the Minister of Education was my speaker. No, my school was not fenced. I made sure that I created the program that I spoke before the Minister of Education. And when I spoke, he spoke after me. I put water, I put everything on it. And when I has about his second or third sentence, he promised fencing of the school. Of course, in my office, there were 3 quotations already. And so I just went for them. They were at the ministry. The school is now fenced and ready. You have to think ahead, know what it is that you want, and create your partnership intentionally and work with what it is that you have.
Okay,
I
thank
think my
you.
5 minutes is expired.
Yes, thank you so much. So we're going to wrap up now. However, I did want to quickly touch on some questions that folks had. So one of the big question is, how do you engage parents that are saying that they are really busy? The important thing right now is that we have Zoom and we are going through COVID. And I think while COVID is a devastation on the entire world, we could use this to our advantage. I've had parents that I've seen at work in the hospital that are nurses that are on Zoom at parent meetings. And so right now, most parents don't have an excuse as to why they can't participate. All they have to do is put on their computer. They could turn off their camera if they're at work. So there should be absolutely no reason. You don't say to them like that. However, I would make the suggestion to say, hey, you know, given now that we're doing a lot with technology, and even when you go back to in-person, I would offer the parent, you know, you could either come in person or we could set up for you to join via video chat. More parents are going to choose that they want to do video chat. You may want to see them in person, but I think that is a good way for you to partner with them and meet them where they're at. Because if you went from a parent not wanting to come and see you at all, and now they're willing to video chat with you, you could definitely use that as a way to engage your parents. In terms of parents that cannot read, I would say use the community. This is where the community comes in. So one of the things that we've done before is that, for example, in my early childhood program, I do have parents that are literate. And so I use the older sibling, I use the neighbor, I use whoever they have that can support with the child. That's who I reach out to help when we were doing remote learning. And so you have to find out who's that village. It said it takes a village. That's what the saying says. It takes a village to raise a child. So who's that village that the parent have that could support them? And then you could tell the parent to utilize that village for it to help them in terms of the children that are not able, for the parents whose children are not able, they're not able to help their children. And for the ones that are just not interested in educated and not invested, I say don't give up. Our parents, it's not that they don't want to, it's just for years they have not done it. And as I said before, my parents were a good example. My parents felt like I was a good, studious child, so they did not need to be involved in my education. And it was when I got to my senior year and it was like, we need to pick colleges. We need to figure out a lot. That's when they saw the importance of it. So I think for you as teachers, as educators, as principals, you have to show the parents the importance of their child's education. And you're gonna have to hammer it in and day out. As the Education Task Force, we are working and trying to do workshops for parents where we're gonna try to bring across information about the importance of being involved in their child's education. And we hope when that information gets to them, that it will make them be more engaged in what is happening. And so I definitely hope that, you guys got some useful information. Just want you to remember, partnership is a give and take where everyone should win. I hope that you guys all got something out of the presentations today. Again, Ms. Myers and myself will share the information we had in our slides. Dr. Dice will ensure that you guys get the recordings from the session on Thursday and the session from today. And I will also ask that you guys bear with us for a few weeks, I would say probably the next 2 weeks or so, to get your certificates, but we will try to get those out to you guys as soon as possible. On behalf of the School and Community Partnership Committee, I would like to say thank you for spending your Sunday afternoon with us in learning and advancing yourself. Good luck as you guys reopen in September. And I wish you all well. And I hope you guys all enjoy the rest of your Sunday afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Winter. And also, thank you to Ms. Myers and Mr. McNamee. We, according to everything that I've seen so far in the chat, the activity, you guys have done tremendously well, and we want to say a special thank you to all of you on behalf of our participants. So thank you so much. If you want to reach out participants, that is, reach out by email, or many of you, some of you are in our WhatsApp group as members of the task force. You can reach out there as well. Keep the conversation going. And as Ms. Winter just stated, that we'll have the certificates coming out, as well as if you have not received, pay attention to the certificates, because if you are not receiving your certificates through regular email, you want to check the spam folder, as well as reaching out to others to find out if they have received already. There's a way that you inquire about certificates, the ones you haven't received, and is to send an email to education@jdtan.org. It's in the press release that you got for this Jaminar. So you can check at the bottom of the press release, and you will see that link there, or the email. Okay, now, one other thing before we go. Remember to complete the survey. It's a hyperlink word in the press release that you got for this Jaminar. It's in the wording. So you want to complete the survey within the next 24 hours in order to receive the certificate. Okay, try and remember that. And then we will issue your certificates, please. Okay, so we want to say a special thank you to everybody who have come on. We really appreciate you, especially knowing that this is your evening, taking it a relaxing time with your family, but you gave up a few of that time, a few minutes or a few hours, if you will, of that time to be with us today. And we really appreciate you guys coming on. Make sure that you implement what you have learned, and then reach out to us with feedback. Okay, now the recordings for this will be in a link form, and we'll send those out to everybody, including our over 1,200 people who have registered for the Jaminar. The rest of us will get that, that link if you register. The only difference is if you did not come on, then you will only get the link to watch this recording, but you'll not get the certificate. That's all. Okay, all right, everybody, take care. Thank you, Miss Winter, and thank you, Miss Myers and Mr. McNamee. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon, everybody. I wish you all the very best. Take care until we meet again. Bye, everybody.